Hello, welcome to Honey Pie Studio. Please kindly subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you will be the first to get notified when I drop a new video. And also, ask your questions under the comment section. Please do hit the like button, giving this video a thumbs up, and also possibly request for a video you want me to make for you. And also, you can recommend this channel, Honey Pie Studio, to your family and friends so they can get value just the way you are getting. This video centers on identifying horizontal and trend line support and resistance. It centers on identifying horizontal and trend line support and resistance, because as a trader you need to be able to identify your support and what and resistance, either the horizontal support or the trend line support and resistance. But more importantly, the horizontal support and resistance are one of the key things every trader needs to know how to identify. Okay, so let's dive in straight into the charts. Well, let's try to make example using a naked chart without a live chart. Okay, now what qualifies or can make a particular spot a support zone or a resistance zone? Okay, let's take for example, you opened your chart. Okay, I'm going to be using my part two. Let's take for example, you opened your chart and you going to find out that the market moved a certain point, and you just don't forget market moves in waves. It won't just go all the way all up. You get me now? Market moves in waves. But there was this particular point market moved, and if you notice it has been moving all the way up. Okay. Now, this point where it started moving, it started trending what? Upwards. Is already known as what? As your support. Because obviously, before market would get to somewhere down and bounce back up, it's coming from where? It's coming from up here to this point. Okay. Before it did what? Before it moved up. So for it to move up with this momentum means that there is something here. What could that be? There are accumulated orders here by traders. The traders has been expecting price to drop from a particular zone, a particular point to this particular point. That there are a lot of buyers are at this what? At this spot. That is why when price got there, price did what? Price moved up. So identifying your support simply means you are expecting what? When price ever drops down again, you are expecting price to come back to that zone and do what? And take off again. Okay. Now we know that basically there are two things that will always happen in the market. Is either your support is what? Is being broken, and when a support breaks, it turns what? It turns resistance. Same thing applies to when a resistance breaks. It turns what? It turns to support. Now, if you notice, when after identifying that okay, price dropped here, you can see where I stopped. I stopped here in the sense that knowing fully well that what? Price has done what? Price has gotten to this place at some point, this particular zone now. Okay, knowing fully well that price has gotten to this point at some point and dropped. So if price gets there again, I'm expecting price to do what? To drop. So this place already will then be identified as my what? As my resistance. Okay? It will then be identified what? As my resistance, meaning that what? Price found it difficult to do what? To break through this zone here. Price did what? Price found it difficult to break this zone here. So it came to this point, it did what? It dropped and came back to the previous support. It did what? It bounced off. It came back here, it did what? It bounced what? Down. So all these support and resistance are good points for one to be able to identify your entry point and your what? And your exit point. Your entry point obviously is always on support, and your exit point is always your at your resistance, depending on your risk to reward what? Risk to reward level. Okay? Now good and fine. In the case scenario whereby price jumped from what? A support. Okay? Price moved from what? From a support. And you have placed your take profit here. Obviously, you are going to take your profit at your resistance because you don't know if price is going to break through or it's going to do what, or it's going to drop. To avoid that, you take your profit here, and fortunately, and price drops. Don't panic. Don't feel like I would have stayed in this particular trade and waited for it to break. And can you imagine? Price will always come back to do what? To test that spot which it broke out from as a found what? As a found what? Support. So it now price has found support at this zone because it has successfully done what? Broken out of this zone. So you at this point wherever you find that price broke out of your resistance point, you should be expecting price to come down to do what? To test that zone where it broke out from and do what? And move up. So your previous resistance is now what? Is now your what? Is now your support. So in the future again, you will be expecting and looking out for what? For possibilities that if price come down to this point, you have another good area to do what? To buy. And this point will be your exit point, or this point could be your exit point, depending on your risk to what? To reward ratio. Okay? Good and fine. Let's dive in straight into the chart. So I'm going to be deleting this off. Okay. Now we have ADA USDT. That's ADA USDT. That's Cardano Theta US. That's what we're going to make an example with. So and with this we are going to be spotting out the support and resistance on this chart. So permit me to zoom out. Okay. The essence of zooming out is for me to see more data on this chart. I can still zoom in a little bit. Okay. Now, from what has been explained, we said that price moving a very huge momentum straight up, figuring out there must be something here. And what is that? A lot of buyers accumulation here. Okay. That is what pushed this price to this extent. So that being said alone, this point is already being identified as what? As a support. So you then take your horizontal what? Your horizontal tool, your horizontal line, you then place at that zone whereby you found out that price moved, and this place is now spotted as your what? As your support. So in time to come, if price eventually drops from this point now where it is down here, you know that you're expecting a huge what? A huge move up, because there was a whole lot of accumulated orders at this zone here that made what? That made price move at the pace at which it did what? It did move to this point. Okay? The pace at which price did what? Did move to this point. So as it stands now, we are still expecting for price to do what? To price to get to this point. Although not in all cases though. We were expecting for what? For price to get to what? Price to get to this point. So that this point now has already been identified as what? As a support. Okay? This point has already been identified as what? As a support. Now, let's identify another support or another resistance. Now, whenever you want to identify somewhere as a support, or for you to call it a support, that point must either be where price is above. Now, if we look at the current market price now, the current market price is at this point. Let me zoom in a bit. Okay. Now, the current market price is at this point, which is at 0.953. That is the current market price now. Now, whatever zone you identify below the current market price is known as your what? As your support. Whatever zone you identify above the current market price is known as your resistance. Why is that being said? Because if a zone is above your current price, meaning that when price get there, it's going to either find it difficult to break it. So there's something resisting it above at this point. Let's take this point for example now. So there's something that is going to be resisting it above this here for it, for price to do what? Find its way to move out. So this place is then going to be called the what? The resistance. And obviously, since here is below the current market price, it's going to be called the what? The support. Okay. Now, let's identify one or two more what? Support and resistance. Now, this point now has already been identified as a what? As a resistance. Why is this place going to be called a valid resistance? It's going to be called a valid resistance because price got to this zone and did what? And dropped. A massive drop. Okay. Price got to that zone and did what? A massive drop. If you notice now that this zone now has already been acting as a support right from this point, whereby price bounced hard off to this point. Price did what? Dropped and bounced off again instantly. And price got to this place. You see, it formed a little resistance. You can see this particular candle here. It took some hours. This is a 4 hours candle. This is 1 4 hours, 2 4 hours, 3 4 hours. This is the fourth, fifth one. And on the sixth candle before it finally did what? Finally broke out. To tell you that this would have been a point whereby you do what? You take your what? You take your profit. Then when market breaks out from here, you then be expecting for price to do what? Price to come back to this zone and respect it as your what? As your support. So, but unfortunately, price did not react on it as a support, but is reacting on it as a what? As a resistance. What do I mean reacting on it as a resistance? Simply because when price broke out from here, ever since it broke out from here, this is the next period it came down to this point. But it didn't react, but it did what? It pierced straight beneath it and is reacting here. That is trying to form what? A resistance here. So we are expecting price to do what? To drop down to this zone. So if this is a current analysis on and one is looking at the chart, one will be looking at expecting to buy from here. Although price has been reacting on this mini support and resistance because On every time frame you can always spot a support and resistance. So if you go down to smaller time frames, you can see that there is a support over here at this zone, okay, whereby price has been what has been reacting. So for those who does a mini buy and scalping, you can see at this point you must have maybe, if you have gotten a price action here, you buy and you take your profit over here. When it comes down here again, if you get the price action, you do what? You buy. But mind you, these are for scalpers, those who take small profits and they are off the trade. But identifying a support and resistance, it's always very important to know the trend of the what? The trend of the market. So as it stands now, at this point here, this place is going to be your what? Your resistance, because you can see price got there and it did what? It bounced back. Try to break it again. It did what? Price bounced back, moved this way, it bounced. He tried going back to break it. He did what? He found a resistance here. He hit hard and he did what? He dropped. So this zone now is now what? Our resistance. This zone here is also our resistance because price is beneath it. And this zone here is our what? Our support, because price is above what? Above it. So let's identify a what? A trend line what? A trend line support. So I'll be using LTC USDT. That's Litecoin USDT to identify our trend line support. Okay. Okay, good and fine. Now, before we look into that, let me quickly explain or talk about the higher lows and the higher highs. For you to identify a trending market, you need to first know if it's making a higher low and higher high. What this simply means is price must have moved from a particular zone. Let's take this point, for example, and move to this point, okay? Which is price moved from a particular low point to a high. So the next move down is going to be called its higher what? Higher low. And its next move up is going to be called its higher what? Higher high. Then the next move down is going to be called its what? Its higher low. The next move up is going to be called its higher high. So this is the way market keeps moving what? In a particular what? Direction. At this point, when you find out market is moving this way, you must have identified that the market is trending what? Trending upwards. If you notice all throughout this point, you will find out that price had never broken its previous higher low, no matter how it tries. Like this is a higher low, this is another higher low. So price has never broken its previous higher low. Same thing applies to this. It never broke its previous higher low. Anytime price breaks its previous higher low, just like it did here, price came down here and broke this higher, know that the uptrending is now what? Invalid. So market is what? Is now going down. So immediately if you are in this trade, you should be looking for how to what? How to exit. So now that being identified, now how do we then identify what? A trend line what? Support. We have been able to identify this zone as an uptrending market. So we then pick our trend line 2. When we pick our trend line 2, we draw it this way. We take it because we have identified. You can see now. Each time what? Each time price got to the trend line, price did what? Price bounced back. Example. Price moved. Each time price got to the trend line, it did what? A bounce. Price moved up. Each time price got to the trend line, it bounced. So this trend line is serving as a what? As a support. It moved. Each time price got to the trend line, it did what? It bounced off. It moved. Each time price got to the trend line, it did what? It bounced off. It moved. Each time price got to it. So anytime it breaks this zone, it is now invalid. So I think I'm going to cut the video here. Please, if you get value, please hit the subscribe button and ask your questions under the comment section. Thank you very much and expect more videos from Honey Pie Studio.